Hello and welcome to
Absolute game of
Nerd!
I'm JP. That's Rohan. If I can't get this right, we're your non-geek, non-nerd hosts, and we have a special guest. All sorts of words. Our friend from our secret organization, Ricky, is here with us today. So, Rohan, can you please introduce Ricky in the proper way?
Yeah, so what JP's referred to, obviously we've talked about it before. We have our
We can't say it. Can't say it.
It rhymes with Manu Manati, or But I will say one thing. So we met Ricky there, and one of the things I appreciate about Ricky is he, like myself, is very opinionated. One and two, he's very vocal about his opinions, and I love that because he and I end up going back and forth a lot in there, and I enjoy the hell out of it. So Ricky, say hello. How you doing?
Hey. Yeah, I like opinionated people. I love people I disagree with because it's impossible to learn in an echo chamber.
Well, no, yeah, and I also just feel like, especially in this hobby with Marvel comics, Marvel cards, wherever it is, a lot of it is like almost like very echo chamber. Everyone wants to just like everyone there. It's like it could get very stale sometimes. So it's like, I think it's great to be like, no, this book's better than that book, or no, that book sucks, or whatever the case is. Like, I'm all for it. So it's been a pleasure getting to know you. But with that in mind, we always start these off with the same question as always. What is your origin story? How did it all start? Your love of comics, this hobby, take us way back.
So like the simplest version is I grew up in a really small town. Give it a Google. Deerfield, New Hampshire. Deer like the animal, field as in field, New Hampshire. We only had our school was K through 8, so we didn't have a junior high. And my graduating 8th grade class, meaning people I went to school with my entire life, was 50.
Ah.
So I was in a school with the same 50 kids your whole life.
Did this town have a 9 through 12, or is it just like, well, that's it? You guys are out
no. So that town had no contracts with any other high schools in the area, like actual high schools. So what it was is part of your 8th grade year was applying to high schools under the auspices of, you're going to apply to high schools because one day you'll apply to college, but really we're just like making up for shitty town planning. And so we all had to apply for high schools. I went to Memorial High School in Manchester, New Hampshire, and I was the only one of those 50 kids that went there. So I went from K through 8 with the same 50 people my whole life. And then in high school, it was me in a city school, knowing nobody. That's not the origin. I was setting the stage for how isolated my town was. We had one country store called the Blue Bowl, and they had a magazine rack, and they would get whatever comics the lady would find in the wild. And so like if she found 20 copies of a book at a flea market, she'd buy all 20 for, a quarter a piece or whatever, and she'd come and she'd charge us cover price, or she'd put a sticker on them. And so we had different kids in my school pick almost like tribal factions. Like, oh no, Will is the Batman kid, Drew's the Spider-Man kid, Shay's the Lady Death kid, creep. And so like we had different kids picking different books, and then we would all just be like, I read this one, this was good, you should read it. And that's what we thought comics was, isolated individual stories, because the only other exposure to comics we had was Batman the Animated Series, where, what do you know? It's insulated stories. It's not serialized. Next time on Batman, we'll continue the adventure. It was just individual tales.
Wait, which character was your designation?
So mine was Spider-Man and Wolverine.
Okay.
So I just read random Spider-Man, random Wolverine, and like X-Men only when Wolverine was in the title, because X-Men belonged to another kid, Chris. So we would buy what we had, and we'd trade. And then this store that is unique to New England, if you know, you know, it was called Building 19. And what they would do is their entire business model was, we're going to buy the shit that falls off a truck. So like if Walmart bought 10,000 chairs, like plastic chairs, and Walmart only sold 2,000. They're not going to send 8,000 plastic chairs back to the distributor. They're going to sell them wholesale to whoever the hell will buy them. So Building 19's entire business model was buying overstock Walmart. So Walmart and other chain stores that they sourced from had thousands of the death of Superman and rebirth of Superman story because they printed the tits off those books. And so what they did was they packaged them by story. And then you'd have this bundle, a plastic bundle of, for $20, here's 30 comic books. This is the entire death of Superman. And then here's $20. Here's the entire funeral for a friend and return of Superman. And that's all they had. But I never knew that comic books had a continuity, that they had a story. And so at like, I don't know, I think I was like maybe like 10, 11. For the first time in my life, I'm reading like, oh my God, it keeps going. And I just, and like, how is this possible? And I read The Death and Return of Superman.
Wow.
Real quick, I want to go back 1 second. You said you had Batman the animated series. Did you not have? How did you not have like Spider-Man or the X-Men?
We did. It's just like if I'm being honest, like Spider-Man the animated series was really cool. I enjoyed it a lot, but like, so okay, the best way I can put it is like the way that so every year my wife and I watch the Academy Awards Best Pictures every single year. We've been doing it for almost 2 decades now, and the way that I vote for what is my best picture at the end of the year is I think about a movie and then what is the one scene that comes to my mind and then how does that make me feel? Like, so if I think of Killers of the Flower Moon, what's the one scene that jumped out at me? And then now I think about the scene, how did it make me feel? And then that's kind of my snapshot of the movie because everything else fades away. Everything else you don't think is important melts. And so like Spider-Man, everything melted for me. Like I enjoyed it in the moment. I remember having a good time. I remember eating the Spider-Man cereal. But like it all melted away. But like I would watch an episode of Batman and for weeks I'd be thinking about Batman turning and looking over his shoulder at Mr. Freeze, who he just locked up, and wondering if he made the right decision. And
I mean, I will tell you, like those 3 cartoons were like just that, and I would say like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But if you had to put what'd you say?
Which 3?
X-Men, Spider-Man, and Batman.
Yeah.
And if you were to put a gun to my head, like it is Batman the animated series is the GOAT, hands down. Like it's not even close in my opinion. Like it's just so epic. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was fantastic. And it like, I don't know, made me, I think for the first time I started paying attention to like the story, not the action. The action had to be there because it was an action story. But like one of the best episodes is when Batman gets sent to that prison camp as Bruce Wayne. And there's no Batman in the entire episode. It's Bruce Wayne with nothing breaking out of like, what is a horrible prison camp. And it's dope. And there's no Batman in it.
Yeah.
Now, even though you were the Wolverine Spider-Man guy, you didn't like the X-Men animated series?
It was fine. It was fine.
But you didn't.
No,
I didn't
have my first boner watching the X-Men animated series. That's not what happened.
With Rogue?
No, nothing. No,
really?
No. And honestly, now when I go back and I watch it, I realize how stilted the animation is. It's very blocky and slow, and there's no flow to it. If you ever want to blow your
G.I. Joe.
No, see that? Okay, so I've been having this discussion with my friends for years that like you can accurately tell when a person was born by the cartoon shows they mention from their childhood, and so I think you've got maybe 5 years on me.
I do
because G.I. Joe was it was one generation. It was my brother who's 5 years older. It was one generation before me in terms of cartoons.
Yeah, I watched the X-Men animated series, but I was in high school when that came out, or early high school. So that's probably why I still enjoyed it and I watched it. But you know, G.I. Joe was the childhood, G.I. Joe and He-Man and whatnot. But the blockiness reminded me of G.I. Joe, but G.I. Joe had much more of a better soundtrack when it came to the gunfights and things of that nature than X-Men. But again, it was slow, and Batman the animated series was like kind of was dark, you know, and it had
Yeah.
a nice ring to it. I did try to catch it, but again, it came back to what channels did you have growing up? You know, they were on the main channels, but if you didn't get home in time because you played a sport or something, or you just did something nerdy, you didn't watch it, you know, because you missed it. And if your mom didn't record it or dad didn't record it, oh well, you know, you couldn't go back and watch it. So
Yeah, so Power Rangers aired at 3 o'clock
Yep.
every day on Fox 25. I got off the bus at like 2:45 because I lived on the edge of town, and so like the buses were done in like grids. So like I was one of the last stops that the bus made at the end before it turned around and went back to the station. And so I would run in the house and watch. But I had violin lessons one day, and I missed the episode where there's like a mirror monster and he's making the putties look like the Rangers. So people are like, oh, the Rangers are committing crimes. And to this day, I still refuse to watch that episode because I have such a strong emotional connection to having not seen that episode and all those memories of my childhood that I refuse to watch it. I've been at friends' houses when they have it on. I'm like, turn that shit off because I don't want to see it because I will die having not seen that one episode.
really,
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about your first boner? What's her name? The Pink Power Ranger.
Oh, sure. No, see, man, like y'all clearly didn't have Roger Rabbit in your house.
Oh no, I
Oh,
watched
yeah, we
Roger
did.
Rabbit. I had Roger Rabbit.
I was like, what is this feeling
first
inside?
and foremost, I had Alyssa Milano, so I had real person than the cartoon. So she was the shiznit back in the day with Who's the
Hey,
Boss,
the Pink
Commando.
Power Ranger was a real woman too, JP.
That's true. I forgot they weren't animated, but she wore a mask, so she wasn't. She was different, right?
Oh, sure.
Fuck.
All right, well, let's take us back then. So that's what got you in. You started reading those big packages of comics. Continue.
Yeah, that was it. I was off to the races. I fell deeply in love with Marvel for a very, very long time. I was a Marvel guy. My wife and I, back in the day, this is like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 1 era. So like 2000s. I don't mean early 2000s. I mean like 2001. The way that it used to be is bookstores, they still have trade paperbacks, right? Everybody's seen the comic section in a bookstore. But back in the day, they had maybe like 3 shelves, and that was all they had because it was the beginning of the Spider-Man craze. Oh, people want to read comic books and see movies about comic books. This will be fun. And so Tobey Maguire Spider-Man made all the money. So bookstores all of a sudden had 5 shelves, but that was it. It wasn't crazy. And so my wife and I, we'd go to like Barnes and Nobles and Borders, and we would sit in the cafe. I would grab stacks of trades, and she would grab stacks of magazines, which were idiotically expensive. And so we would sit there for like 3 hours and just read, and then we'd go to the movies, and that was date night, and it was fantastic. I'm married to the girl that I went on these dates with. We've been together since high school. But one day we were in the Manchester, New Hampshire Barnes and Nobles, and I had read everything. I mean, everything. Like they only had volume 2, 4, and 8 of Punisher. Read it all. But like, because I didn't want to go to DC because I looked down on DC. I wanted my superheroes to be big, bright, colorful, and to be relatable. And so I had read everything, and my wife had a stack of magazines left, and she's like, babe, please, can you find something to read for like another hour? And I was like, fuck it. And I found a book that looked like nothing I'd ever seen before just by the cover. And I picked it up, and it was the first time in all of my hundreds of trades of reading that I was like, I'm taking this home because I want to start it over and I want to read it again. And it was Kingdom Come.
Oh yeah.
And it just blew my mind. I've never, like, the painted interiors, I'd never seen anything like it. And then I went to my local comic book store, which was Double Midnight Comics, again in Manchester. And I said, like, I went to Brett, who's still a friend. He was the owner of the store. And I went up to him and I was like, how dare you keep this from me? Like, how dare you not tell me this was so good? And he was like, you were Mr. Marvel, man. I didn't want to ruin your parade, but like, this is a different type of reading. And I was like, yeah, what else is there? And he's like, keep going. And then that was incidentally when the first issues of what's it called? Identity Crisis came out, and it was the most adult story I've ever read in a comic, even to this day. for superheroes, I mean, even with Watchmen, I've never read anything as adult as in Identity Crisis. It was impressive.
Is that what attracts you then to DC? Is the more kind of mature content?
It was it. So I'm not gonna lie. I felt like DC grew up with its readers, and I felt like I still kind of feel like Marvel is pretty stunted with its readers. I've made the joke on my channel before. There's a Chris Rock joke that I love where he says, when you're white, the sky's the limit, but when you're black, the limit's the sky. And so I think about that with DC and Marvel. With DC, the sky's the limit. You want to kill people, you want to make a mantle out of your character. You want to like have, I mean, I don't want to be gross or nothing. I'm not looking forward to this shit, but like if you want to deal with really mature themes like sexual assault has happened in DC, terrible thing. These are villains. They want to destroy the planet. They're not robbing banks anymore. Terrible things happen in DC Comics. Marvel Comics, the limit's the sky. They're chained to a corporate mouse who will not let their intellectual properties do something so terrible that it would make
but let's go. I mean,
Marvel was like that before.
That's what I say. Like Disney wasn't the one that put the shackles on, right? That's probably been Marvel well before Disney bought them.
So some of the stories that I've read by Marvel that were like pretty messed up. Like go back to Maximum Carnage. I remember Peter Parker seeing blood all over a wall and realizing, and it was a message to Spider-Man. It was like, come and get me, Spidey. And Peter Parker realizes that the blood isn't from the victims who are clearly dead on the floor. The blood was from Carnage writing in his own blood. And he goes like, I'm dealing with a sick person here who would do this. That's fucked. Like that Marvel would tell that story to children. Or what's the other one? Even as early as the Disassembled. As late as Disassembled. Avengers Disassembled happened in like 2005, 2006. Brian Michael Bendis. That's when I was reading. They had the cover with one of these characters will die. And Scarlet Witch goes fucking bonkers, makes Iron Man drunk at the UN, weird, and then kills Clint Barton by him suiciding into a jet engine to save his friends. And I'm like, this is wild shit. Marvel doesn't pull that shit anymore. They'll do something gross, almost gross, and then the next issue they'll be like, yeah, but it wasn't so bad. Like when because I read this, Immortal Hulk, he buries that guy in the ground. There's a nuclear dude. And Hulk is like, oh, I know I can't kill you, but I'm going to bury you and then like give you a live burial and leave you here. And then you can die in the ground over 1,000 years. Live forever, dickhead. And it was such a gross ending to the story. Next issue, psych, government's digging him out of the ground so he can go work for them. And I'm like, you immediately undid the cool, dark thing that you did, Marvel. Like Marvel, I don't know. They play with the training wheels on. They're never going to take them off.
Let me ask a question. So 2 storylines that I know of and picked up recently just because I know they're darker on the DC side. One's the Nightwing assault book. You know
Sure.
what I'm talking. Okay.
Sure.
The other one is Green Lantern and Major Force. You know what I'm talking about? That was pretty deep, pretty dark, I would think. Where he cuts up the girlfriend and throws her in the freezer is what happens to Green Lantern, his girlfriend. So he's off. I didn't read it yet, but I do have a list of books I want to read. And I do like the darker storylines, but he essentially was saving somebody else and came back, and Major Force got the girlfriend, beat her to death, and then cut the pieces up, threw her in the freezer for him to find. And I was like, whoa, that is fucked up shit, you know? But
yeah, I just don't see, and it sucks because like I know this sounds like super judgy of Marvel fans. I promise I'm not. Please subscribe. It's just I do feel like there is an element of even with me and DC, if I'm being honest, there's an element of like an abusive relationship of like I love the character so much that despite her having a shitty boyfriend, I'm still gonna hang out with her. And in this analogy, the shitty boyfriend would be like whatever creative director is heading Marvel Studios or heading Marvel publication at the time.
Ricky, let me ask you this question. So then you never had like a break away from comics. Once you were in, you've been in.
I've been reading steadily, but I'll keep it 100%. I was not collecting them for a long time. I was stealing them digitally. And that's how I was consuming
No,
my
yeah,
comics.
that's fine. I mean, my point I'm getting at is like, who knows? I could have had similar experiences in the sense that except I stopped as a child, right? Like I stopped, I got into sports, I moved on, and so my reading is literally through like the early 90s. So like even when you were
Sure.
mentioning these like current storylines, even what 2000, like I don't know any of the storylines, right? And who knows, maybe my experience would have been exactly the same as yours, and I'd be a DC huge guy like you are. And I do like DC, right? I'm not here to diss DC, but and so like why I'm a huge Marvel fan is because of that tie to my childhood. And it's like I don't read. I'm not a reader. I've been very clear about that. I'm a collector now solely, and so I don't have those opinions about like new storylines or current storylines or anything like that. So I can understand that though. Like if it was phased perfectly, like you kind of grew up with it, it grew up with you. Like I could totally understand that. So that is interesting perspective to hear. Now, how would you define yourself as a comic reader first, or a comic collector, or talk to me about that?
I am a reader who gets off on reading stories of big characters that they own the first appearance of. And what I mean by that is like if I'm reading a book about, Captain Buzz from 1940, fine, it's fine. I'm having a good time. Maybe the stories are great, maybe they're terrible. Maybe I'm having the best time, right? But if I own the first appearance of Captain Buzz from 1939 and I'm reading the book now, I have a stronger emotional connection to the character that I'm reading because I feel like I own a piece of them.
Mhm.
And when I feel like I own a piece of that character and they appear in a comic, I get giddy. It's a weird feeling. Like if I'm reading a random Green Lantern book and I'm having a good time, and then Crypto the Super Dog appears, I feel so happy. And then like when I finish the issue, I have a compulsion to go and pick up the book and be like, I own his first appearance, and it feels cool. It's almost like when you read a book, you're in your own head and you're somewhere else. You're in the ether, just enjoying the story. But when you own the first appearance and you read the book, you have this physical connection to the text that literally doesn't exist in any other hobby that I've experienced. Like I don't experience this with video games. Like how do I own a piece of a video game character that I love? I can't. How do I own a piece of Little Women by Louisa May Alcott? I can't. Maybe I can get her autograph, I guess, but it doesn't connect me to the story. But if I'm reading a story about Wolverine and I own the first appearance of Wolverine, I feel like I own Wolverine. I feel like he is me on the page. It's a weird link that I have when I own those first appearances.
What about with a movie?
I mean, I connect. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not like a weird, non-empathetic person. I cry at movies like a goddamn asshole.
No, but are you asking JP, like when
Yeah.
you see a movie about a comic book, do you get that same giddy feeling when
Yes,
you're watching the movie?
same thing. If I
But
own
you
the first appearance and I see them, I get excited.
But you said like Little Women. So if you watch the movie Matrix, there is a comic book. So maybe that's a bad analogy, but do you have to have like Matrix was a huge part of my early adulthood, I guess I'll say,
Sure.
like out of college, almost out of college at that time. Star Wars, childhood, G.I. Joe, like
I was
don't
in
really
third grade when The Matrix came out, to give you an
Oh.
idea of the difference.
Okay. that gives me a better difference.
I think
But-
I was in college when the Matrix came. Maybe it was late high school.
It was 99, so I was in college. when
Okay,
that
no, I
came
was
out.
in high school. Yeah.
Oh,
you were a
99.
little-
No, I was in seventh grade then. Okay,
Yeah.
seventh
Yeah,
grade.
99. But I mean, I didn't really feel I do have the comic, but I don't feel the need. So think of a movie like The Green Mile was a great movie. You can Stephen King. Do you need to have the book to feel the connection, or does it,
So I'll
is it
give you a very real example. I have a deal with my wife where the TV is mine 100% so long as I'm rubbing her back.
There you go.
I give bomb back rubs. I'm the back master. And so like I'll get in there with the lotion. She'll sit on the floor. I'll be on the couch. I'm going ham. She's in zone out town. And we watch all of Gravity Falls on.
Wait, so these backgrounds are like hours long sessions?
If we're watching like an hour long episode and she gets tired of back, I'll move to feet. I'm not above it.
What if you're watching like a 3-hour Scorsese film.
Oh, then we hit pause and we'll continue the next night.
You don't just
But that would
one-hand
also require me to choose a Scorsese film, because in these rare opportunities, I'm picking exactly what I want to watch. So the point of that is lately my thing has been Star Trek. And I want to take her through the canon. She hasn't seen it all. So I'm like, let's fucking go.
Okay, so in the background scenario, she does still pay attention.
That's part of the deal. Like you have to at least be present. Like you can't just be like, I'll go to sleep and you can rub my back. Like no,
Okay,
you
that's
gotta be
what
here.
that's what I was imagining. She's just like zoning out, and you're just like,
because I can watch anything I want. Like I'm not like a slave. I can watch anything. But it's showing her some of the things that I love, that I would love to watch with someone who hasn't experienced them. That's a part of that nerdness too. Like not just seeing the episode, but getting someone who hasn't seen it to see it is always fun. And so I'll make her. So we're watching Star Trek, and I have all the Next Generation first appearances and Deep Space Nine and Voyager. I don't have the original series one, but we'll be watching them. And yeah, there is that extra connection of like, I own their first appearance in comics. That's really cool. I have that additional layer of attachment.
Well, the interesting part is I'm a Star Wars guy. You're a Star Trek. I remember you said that.
Yeah.
When we spoke a little bit ago. I never had a problem with Star Trek. But trying to get people over COVID to watch Star Wars, and starting with episode 4, I had a buddy of mine, he was an athlete back, and I played sports too, but I was
an athlete too, trust me.
I'm just saying, but like I played. If you grew up in my time, you freaking had to know Star Wars, right? I know you're Jack messing around, but like some people like say I never saw Star Wars. I played sports. I'm like, what does that have to do with it? Like it was the biggest movie of the time,
right?
You know what I mean, when you grew up. So how did you never see it if you were 6 years old or 8 years old when it came out? So I had him watch it, and again, he was at his place. Everyone was all locked down, and he's like, I got through the first 20 minutes. It was terrible, and I'm like, I mean, I know it aged well, but not as well as other stuff. But I'm like, you didn't get into it. And I said, all right, watch Iron Man or Captain America. He's like, I'll do that. And he loved it. But just because the era,
I do think
and you go back to
I do think in those situations though, like the nostalgia that you have towards it is a huge component of why you're so into it.
Yep.
Like it's very likely if I love Star Wars, or I love the original 3. I think most of the stuff they've made is pretty much garbage since.
And you were an athlete.
Yeah. But my point is like, if I was to watch episodes 4 through 6 today for the first time, there's no telling what I may think of it, right? Because I don't have that memory of watching it as a child. It's kind of like when we were talking on our thread the other day about Brandon's like, you got to watch Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
great. And I was like, I don't want to watch it because I don't have a nostalgia factor to it. And I'm going to bet that like, because I don't have that, it will not be nearly as good to me as it is to you guys.
And that's my concern with Ricky watching with your wife. Like, she may not feel the same way. She may enjoy it, but it isn't like the same feeling that when you were 10, 12.
Okay, and so this is where the parallel between Star Trek and Star Wars depart, because Star Trek has always been clever. At the very least, you don't have to say it's exciting or thrilling or there's no light swords or anything like that. But at the very least, even from the very first episode, Man Trap, you're like, oh shit, that's smart. Yep. It is what it is. But I'm saying like it was written by the science fiction authors of the time. So it wasn't a guy trying to sell toys. It was written by authors.
It definitely aged in regard to the writing of it. So I will give it that.
Yeah.
Star Wars had some quippy lines. Matrix, again, just to bring that one up, like to have someone watch it who wasn't around back then, it may not have the same feeling. That's my only concern, is when you try to watch something and you had that, like, I remember being in the theater when I saw Matrix and I was just like, holy shit. That was like the coolest movie I'd ever seen.
Yeah, but I think that's the test. If you introduce something that you loved to someone, something that you loved as a child, and you introduce it to them and their eyes glaze over and they look at you and they're like, what do you see in this? It's literally the same as love. If I brought a woman to my friends and I said, meet Cheryl, and they're like, what the fuck do you see in this girl, man? What are you thinking? I know it's love. But if they see her and they're like, God damn, she's gorgeous and she's funny, what is she doing with you, dickhead? Now I know, like, no, she's a 10 anywhere. But if I'm the only one that notices it, it's just love. So maybe when you showed your friend Star Wars and he saw it was dumb, maybe that was a sign.
It was a sign we shouldn't be
No,
friends.
I mean, I agree with that
I
concept.
haven't talked to him in a while, so yeah, maybe.
There's a number of movies that I loved as a child that I know for a fact if I was to watch them today, I'd be like, well, that didn't hold up. And so I don't need to watch them because I want to retain that memory. So I completely understand that. I've never watched Star Trek. I've only seen the two, like the new movies, with like Chris Pine and
those are fine. They're fine.
Yeah, that's the only exposure I've had to Star Trek, so I can't speak to anything on Star Trek, but I totally get where you're coming from on
But
that.
even go back to comics. You tell someone to go read Spider-Man from 1960, and it's corny, right? Some of the storylines were good. Spider-Man, the drug issue. There's many Kingpin. There's a number of good issues, but they don't. The stuff they said back then, it doesn't hold up now. You know what I mean? And
totally. I agree. And and I'd be interested, since Ricky, you're a big reader, even just beyond comic books. It's like I've tried to read like Charles Dickens books today, and it's like I can't. They're so freaking
that's
boring.
so funny. I literally just as in last Friday, I just finished reading Pride and Prejudice. I love reading the classics. I love reading the classics.
I can't remember which one I read, but it was like the big story. It's like, oh, so and so went out on the town without a man. Like, ooh, the town is in a tizzy, and I was just like, I don't care. I can't.
Right, I know, but it's a cultural snapshot at the time. Yeah. So, for example, in Pride and Prejudice, one of the sisters runs off with a soldier. We're gonna go run off and be married, and because it wasn't announced formally, because they didn't get the parents' permission, because nobody knew and there wasn't like an official broadcasting of this information, one of the cousins writes the girl's father and earnestly says in a letter that the father agrees with, better that she should have died than done what she did. And the dad's like, yep, bitch. And it was I don't know, like it's a snapshot of time, like what was important to these people. And I think it says something that like love is still important. Like you could read a book from 2,000 years ago and love is still a key component, which I think says something about the human condition. But the other cultural assemblies of like, how did they react to education? How did they react to school? Does mom ever say fucking anything when dad is talking? Does she ever interrupt him? Nope, she's quiet. Like, what does it tell me about the world they lived in? And that was late 19th century. So I think it was like 1847, something like that. But I read Moby Dick. Moby Dick, I finished last year. It's a 2,000-page book, and literally 200 pages of the 2,000-page book, 10% of that book is the narrative that you know about Moby Dick. There's a guy named Ishmael. He gets on a ship, and there's a captain who's really obsessed with a whale. 200 pages of narrative dispersed over 2,000 pages, because the majority of the book is a painstakingly detailed and beautifully written description of every aspect of the whaling industry. So they show you everything. This is how we catch a whale. This is what we do with the whale. This is how we process it. This is where we put the oil. This is where we sell the oil. This is what everybody does. The guys in the bottom of the ship have these big sticks that they chop up the whale meat with, and all of them have at least 5 missing toes because they all miss. Like, there's all these crazy details about the world. And so, like, that's what makes Moby Dick special. It's a textbook for what the world looked like in whaling in the 19th century.
But even going to that point, people try to cancel the culture from that time, or don't want to burn books for what it said. And that's just a snapshot in time of how people lived. Whether right or wrong, that's what people knew then, right?
Absolutely.
So to discount that because it's not today, like go back to people who said something 25 years ago that was okay, and now they're getting canceled. Like that's what the nice, not that you'd read the book for that reason, but you learn what it was like and what was important. And it's just,
well, yeah, I mean, there's also the importance of context. So like, if someone is reading, Twain, and they come across N-word Jim, as the character. That's his name. That's what they call him. And then he even has a conversation with Huckleberry Finn about like, oh, I thought that was your name. And he's like, no, I don't like being called that. That's part of the story. Whereas a girl in a mall with a shirt that said N-word Jim on it, I'd be like, Jesus Christ, what are we doing? Like there's a difference between learning from the history and sensationalizing it to like be shocking.
Yeah, and we don't need to diverge into like discussion on cancel culture, but like, yeah, that is one of the things that drives me crazy when they're like, "Did you know so and so said this in 1982?" It's like, shut up, let's move on. Like,
I'm sorry. Like this is all I'll say on it. We don't have to go down this road, but like, I'm not kicking Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard out of bed. I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. If I could magically steal someone's writing and make it my own, I would take everything Robert E. Howard ever wrote. He's
wait, what has he written? I
Is that the Scientologist?
Oh, okay.
No, Conan.
Okay.
Conan. It's literally poetry in fantasy. Like you'll read it and you'll be like, I've never read fantasy like this. Tolkien can eat 10 bags of dicks and he won't be half the talent that
You're
Howard
gonna get
was.
cancels for saying that, Ricky.
Yeah. How did you get these bags of dicks? How did you come across a sack of dicks, Ricky?
Some people prefer to eat sacks of dick.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very good dicks.
Let's swerve back then.
How do you? How's the transition from that? Let me see how you transition out of that.
I was just gonna say we're gonna swerve back and talk about comic
We're gonna
books.
curve back into comics.
Yeah. And I'm just saying,
ride
again,
a boomerang.
Knowing Ricky from our text thread,
Yeah, I have to say
he has a very different taste of what he collects versus what the rest of us, for the most part, collect. So I want you to discuss and to talk about what it is that you're into collecting right now.
Right now, it's indie as fuck. I am. I'm not. Where capes are concerned, it's DC. Like I haven't gotten into indie in terms of like The Boys or even Invincible. Like I like those stories, and one day I will add them to the collection, sure. Just because I am expanding what I consider to be indie. But like, I'm looking for books that were culturally specific to myself, things that I grew up with, and I see that a lot with people who are like, I grew up with Spider-Man, so I want to collect Spider-Man. I grew up with Superman, yada, yada. To be real, before comic book movies were a thing, and I really do want to make this video, so, hit subscribe, fuckers. I really do want to make this video. Comic book movies before Marvel. And we had Tank Girl. That was a comic book movie.
The other day. The other one I didn't think of was Conan. But even
Conan.
That's Marvel. That's
Conan. Well, I mean, that was a book first, but there's I can see what you're saying. But yeah, Tank Girl was a big one for me as a kid. So I grew up in an era when you could give the cable man a certain amount of money and he would program the boxes with the channels.
The black boxes, man, where you could get I love that. That's something I think about, like what could take you back to that time period is those black boxes you could get on your TV. And it's like I had friends that they had free pay-per-view because of the way their black box was set up.
So my dad, he went to the cable guy and he was like, "Look."
Did he give a bag of dicks or just?
Yeah. It was like a magic beans. It's still dripping, and he's like, and so he handed over what he handed over. I think it was like $200 or something. I wasn't there, but when he came back in the house in the 90s, he had a cable box for literally every room in the house, to the point where he bought me a 12-inch tube television for my room for Christmas so that I could benefit from one of the cable boxes that he had secured. So in second grade, I had HBO, Cinemax, Showtime,
Skinemax.
the Sci-Fi Channel, Cartoon Network, and I'm trying to remember the other big one. But yeah, those were the big ones. So I had every movie channel as a kid. And for people who don't know, because they're young, the way that these movie channels used to work is they would program their day. 8 to 10, we're playing this movie. 11 to 12, we're playing this movie. Little 15-minute commercials in between for other movies we have at different times of the day. We'll tell you the schedule, and that's how you watch your movies. But when they got a movie that they were proud of or that they was doing well in their programming, they would play it fucking every day for a summer. And so one of those movies for me was Tank Girl. Every day for an entire summer was Tank Girl. And whatever time of the day I caught it, whatever part of the movie, I would watch it. And so like now that I'm an adult, I have such fond memories of that. I don't know my first experience Tank Girl.
Pause real quick. What year was Tank Girl? Because I had never heard of Tank Girl.
Shit.
Tank Girl was played by she was a girl from Point Break.
It was like Laura
Correct.
Linney or something.
Oh, I know that name, Laura Linney.
Tank Girl.
She was
Lori
in,
Petty, sorry.
I don't know
1995. So I was 9 years old. Or no, I was 10. I was 10 when Tank Girl came out. And it was rated R. It had Malcolm McDowell was the villain. I remember that. And it was just such a fun, wild movie. And it ended with like a 10-minute sequence of like animation from the comic. Like they animated the comic and showed you what the characters would have looked like. Like, because we saw the live action the whole movie, but they would end with the comic characters. And it was just so good. And so that's something that I picked up. Judge Dredd was huge for me as a kid. It's one of the only good memories I have of my dad.
Your dad was just saying, "I am the law."
No, my dad was a piece of shit. Just a miserable monster of a human being. And I have his name, which sucks. I'm literally the third. So my grandfather, my dad, and me, we all have the same name. I'm breaking the line. No kids here. But it was one of my birthdays. And it was the year that Batman Forever came out on my birthday. So my birthday's July 9th. So whatever year that was when it came out in the summer. And he took me out of school to go to any movie I wanted. And I was like, Batman. And he spent the day with me, buying me toys and taking me to McDonald's and like planting the seeds of like, yeah, but Judge Dredd's supposed to be really cool. And I was like, Batman. It's Batman, Dad. It's not nothing but Batman. And so he was like, fuck it. We're going to go see both. And so for the first time in my life as a little kid, going to the movies twice in one day. And it was just so like I had this really strong memory of Judge Dredd, and like to have a piece of shit dad and to have an actual good memory of him is like it's unique for me at least. And so like lately I made a huge trade. It's coming in the mail, should be in by the end of the month, of the first 300 Dredd issues. I traded some big books for it, but I'm pretty happy with what I got. And so that's what I'm doing. Like the Crow was another one that was really big when I was growing up. But like, yeah, indie books. And I brought some.
Yep.
I brought some.
Right there.
Yeah.
Crow. You have an 8.5 though, right? You piece of shit.
Yeah. I think it's white pages too.
Well, of course you had to bring race into it. But do you have the 8.0 trilogy?
No, that's the best.
Wait,
All
what is
in
that?
8.0.
What is that third book?
This is this is Dead World number 10, and this is the first advertisement for the Crow.
Oh, okay.
So Dead World was like their magazine about like zombies and coming back from the dead.
That is
and,
a
like,
magazine
short
book?
stories. No. It's like a magazine in that like it's vignettes, it's individual stories. And so they put an advertisement for the Crow, and then that was the first advertisement. This is the first Crow appearance. It's in a story he shows up and threatens a dude and says like, I'm coming, tell him I'm coming. And he's like, gross. And he's like, no, I meant like threateningly. And he's like, oh, okay, I thought you meant like jizz. And then issue 1, that's that. Another thing that was big when I was a little kid was the Smurfs. I loved the Smurfs as a child. I would go to kindergarten and we would watch David the Gnome, Sharon, Lois, and Bram, which was with Elephant, and then the Smurfs. And so from 1958, Spirou 1071. This is a Belgian comic book from 1958. And this is the first appearance anywhere of the Smurfs. Not That's like great. First appearance in comic books or first appearance on TV. No, they appeared here. Actually, if you go to their museum in Belgium, it's a museum of animated arts in Belgium. And when you walk in, they have a huge exhibit of the Smurfs, and they blow this entire page up on their wall because that is the first appearance of the Smurfs. Yeah. It's a story about a prince and his little like squire, and this guy has shown up in town, and he has a magic flute that can compel people to dance and forget their responsibilities. So like he plays it for the king, and the king's like, I don't care about the kingdom, I'm grooving. And so they're like, where did you get this? They heard it was from the little people in the forest, and it turns out it's the Smurfs, and so they go
They
to get
blue?
another flute.
They were
Yeah,
blue
they're
then?
blue.
Do you have one of these?
What is that?
Oh, from the lunchbox thermos.
The
Please tell me
lunchbox.
you.
Take it off, pour your soup in it or your milk and drink that.
Yeah, so that's the
Oh,
first
yeah,
they're-
Smurf. And then
So-
Papa Smurf is over here.
On
Yep,
that
Papa
specific
Smurf.
book, did you go to that museum and learn that, or did you research and find out that and then go
No,
to
I was just doing research, and then here's the thing about indie collecting for all you viewers out there who say like, I want to get into indie collecting. What's indie collecting like? This is what indie collecting's like. You plan, but your plan means nothing because these books are so rare and they're often really expensive because it's a compressed market, meaning not many people are selling it. So if only 3 people are selling that Smurf book, those 3 people decide what the price is. Doesn't matter what it's worth. Doesn't matter what the fair market value is. If you have $1 million, but you can't find the fucking thing, the person who's selling it can charge you whatever they want.
Mhm.
And so you plan like, I'm gonna go for this book. I'm gonna go for this book. 1, you might never find it. 2, you might not find it for whatever your planned price was. So really what indie collecting is being prepared to pull the trigger when you see the book, not when you can afford it, which is kind of scary.
Yeah.
Because if you save up for 2 months and you've got $400 to your name, but a once in a decade book goes up on the market and it's $600, you might have to just be comfortable going into debt that $200. So the reason why indie collecting really sucks is because I pretty much just sounded like I'm advocating for swiping your credit card for comic books. I don't advise that. You should pay with what you can save up. That's how our parents taught us to be frugal with money. Unfortunately, with indie books, if a book I'm looking for that like I've been looking for 10 years finally appears on eBay and it's $500 more than my budget, I have to have a real conversation with myself of either I go into debt $500 and then just like pay off the interest on the credit card and deal with it, or I don't see it for another 10 years. It really is that bad. So
And
this book, for example, I got a raw copy for $250. The only other 3 copies that exist on eBay are 1,000, 1,500, and 1,600. So what were my options? Like the fair market value is supposed to be like $80. So what am I going to like be a dick about it? Or am I going to jump and then grab it for the price that I can?
that book you waited 10 years though for?
That I didn't wait 10 years for. This one I waited 10 years for. This is Carpe Noctem #1. This is a goth magazine. It's full of like literature and articles about just being goth. Like, do you want to buy like corsets and shit? Do you want to hear about this goth band? Do you want to like Anubis release party for their shitty goth album that no one's ever heard of? It's just a goth magazine. They only printed 1,000 copies back in 1994. Interestingly enough, this August is its 30th year anniversary. But in the very back, they said, hey, let's put a comic in. And this is the first appearance of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. And Johnny is a huge character from the 90s. That's Johnny right there.
I don't remember him.
I don't remember. I've never heard of him either.
It can't be understated how his first issue went to its 28th printing. Comic book stores could get it for years. They would just put it in order, and first issue.
What year did it come out? 94? You said?
His first appearance I think was like 96. In Johnny the Homicidal Maniac #1.
Well,
so,
think
like-
about it. What happened? You know, yeah, Kurt Cobain passed away. What year was that? 94, 95?
Somewhere in there,
Columbine,
yeah.
right?
Columbine
Good.
was much later. Columbine was much later.
It was in the mid 90s. I don't think it was much later than that.
No, I want to say Columbine was like 2000, maybe
No.
99.
No, it's earlier than that. I was in grade school.
I was in high school.
Columbine
when it
shooting year. Oh, 99. So so same as Matrix, right?
Yeah, so I would think that that's why I was just thinking there was some dark stuff happening in the mid 90s that maybe caused that to like that name to catch people, because I don't remember hearing it.
I
Yeah,
never
so-
heard of it either.
Yeah.
So
but I
like
thought-
you've heard of Invader Zim,
No.
the Nickelodeon show?
I knew
I've heard of
we can't
Earthworm
do that on
Jim.
television, but I didn't know anything else on Nickelodeon besides that.
Ah, you guys are killing me. Yeah, because that was his big break. He got like 2 seasons over at Nickelodeon, like a Nickelodeon cartoon show.
But I remember Evil Ernie,
Sure.
and he was on every Iron. Like he looked like Eddie from Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. Yeah, there. Oh, nice. Look at that thing.
It's qualified because it has both of the artist and the writer's signature on it.
That's awesome.
But if you compare these signatures to literally every other signature on eBay, these two, the writer and the artist, had like a thing where they would show up and they would like sign in one color pen, one in the other. They would always put it in this corner. They always look like this.
But
even
just in
verified.
general, though, like the fact that CGC gives those green labels is stupid. Like, because if you ask, they will give you a blue label. So it's like, why are they even putting a green? Like, there's plenty of blue labels that said Stan Lee's name written on the cover. Like, why they gave people green labels for that? It's just the dumbest thing to me.
Yeah.
So I'll buy CGC books, but I will never send to CGC. I think it's icky.
I mean,
just because I'm a reader, and when you slab a book, it becomes 2 pages. Yeah. I can't read this. And now I'm like left with this moral conundrum of like, do I bust it out of the slab? One day I'll probably make that video where like for 20 minutes I bitch about CGC and just crack open every slab I have. And
yeah. So what are the other indie books you're chasing?
So yeah, to close out on that, they only made 1,000 of them. It's a goth magazine from '94, and they only made 1,000 of them. So it's like super rare. So when I bought this
on eBay, and they got a 9/8 for $2,500.
Of what?
That book?
Of this one?
Johnny the Homicidal Maniac for $2,500.
Oh, so his first issue.
The Homicidal Maniac #1.
Yeah, his first issue.
Yeah, not the first appearance, but even just the first issue.
It's a pricey book. So there's that one. I just showed this one. This is Evil Ernie. The first appearance of Evil Ernie and Lady Death. So if you were a young boy in a comic book store in the 90s and you wanted to know what a boner was, you'd go to your local store and you'd see a picture of Lady Death and you'd find out. And there were 3 sexy ladies that made up the 90s. It was Lady Death, Dawn, and Vampirella. You'd go to any comic book store in the 90s and you'd see those and be like, who are they? And so I collected that. First Tank Girl, 1988.
Oh, yeah.
This is another one. This is a hard rock magazine. They cover albums and metal and shit and t-shirts. Yeah, and then they're still around today, but they're exclusively music. But they had comics, and so this is the first appearance of Tank Girl. Second appearance. It came as a set, so I can't.
So are you after the 2 I can think of would be Cerebus and Gobbledygook?
So I don't have here's the deal. I don't have an emotional connection to Cerebus, and so the prices it commands are pretty big. Mm-hmm. It's like 2,000 for a mid-grade.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
It's not cheap.
And there's tons of fakes.
Yeah, so you want it slabbed unless you're an expert in determining like that it isn't slabbed. And you should still, even if it's slabbed, now what we know about CGC, even if it is slabbed, you should still educate yourself on how the dots look on the red. That's how you determine it. Use Key Collector and look up Cerebus 1, and they have great pictures to inform you on how to spot a fake. So even if it's in a slab, you should pull up Key Collector, look at the difference, and then determine it. But I was at a flea market a couple of weeks ago, and a guy had dollar books, just dollar books as far as the eye can see. And he had like the first 60 issues of Cerebus reprinted, the re-releases in comic size format, not magazine format. And so I have all the issues. So I plan on reading them. And then who knows, maybe when I'm done with that, I'll have a connection to them and I want to collect it. But for the time being, like, I'm not going after books I don't have a connection with.
Got it.
And then speaking of Dawn.
Well, let me ask them the question too. We talked about, that's called Cry Dawn, correct?
Cry for Dawn. Cry for
Dawn.
Yeah, that's first.
It's a great cover too.
Sick cover. Yeah.
Now, the question I have is this was brought up on our chat, the secret chat, about second, third, and you said Johnny the Homicidal Maniac has a 28 printings, you said?
Yeah.
That's on the first issue though, right? Not on that. Not
So-
on that.
No,
first
the
appearance.
other issues went up to like 15, 16.
No. I'm saying the 28 printings was on Johnny the Homicidal Maniac #1, not
Yeah.
the Prima Nocta or whatever that magazine.
No,
was.
that was a one and done.
Yeah.
But how
So
do
when it
I
comes
feel
to
about second
collecting-
prints?
Well, I mean, if you have a connection to that character, does it matter to you what printing you have, or do you go for the money book?
Yes.
I agree with this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first appearance, and
Exactly.
it's the first appearance. It's the first time in comic books that they appeared. It's not
So
6
you
months
want to go
later.
for the
Yeah.
first printing.
I agree with this. Like, it's not the true. I mean, it is, but like, you don't get that same first appearance energy or vibe when it's like
Yeah.
the third print or this like fifth print. Like, who cares?
The only time I would put an
TMNT.
asterisk on that is with Turtles,
Yeah.
because it was so small and intimate that Eastman and Lear were there for like the printing and packing of boxes and unpacking of boxes. So like part of the appeal of it is it's such a small indie book. Like their literal fingerprints are on the covers, man. But like that's true of all three printings.
But I mean, but like, it's a significant jump, right? First printing is 3,000, second printing is 6,000, the third printing is 36,000. So it's a significant jump from second to third.
Yeah, I thought you were talking prices, and I was like, I wish.
Yeah.
No, if you want, and the thing is with the Turtles, everyone that owns them isn't selling them, so it's a compressed market again.
Yeah,
it's
the
same
thing
with
that's
Andy.
annoying, because I want a TMNT one, as we've discussed, first print. And the tough thing is that the only ones that go for sale are the high grade ones, which
Yep.
I'm not affording. Like, there
No,
are some 4.0s, there are some 5.0s, and I've never seen one.
no, it's because the collectors have them. They know what they have, and they would probably rather trade it for like Golden Age shit before they
Yeah.
try to sell it. It's a hard book to find. However, the reason why I don't necessarily give a shit about the Turtles and add it, if I found it for a song or a great deal, of course I'd buy. It's just a smart thing to buy. It's literally the closest indie has to like an AF-15 in terms of value and sustainability. It's never not going to be valuable.
100%. 100%.
When the
agree.
apocalypse happens and we're all standing around trash cans wondering where we can find rats to eat, there will be a guy with an AF-15 and another guy with a Turtles 1, and they will be gods, because that's the only ones left. But the I don't know what fucking point I was going to make. This is why I don't get old, folks, because your brain just turns off.
As you're 8
We're
years
both
younger than
old.
me, so
Yeah, way older.
what I have to
We
look forward to.
let's take you while you've brain farted. We can segue. Talk to us about your channel. When did you start? What got you to start? What is it about? What do you want to accomplish with it?
I lived in Maine, and I'm sorry, I lived in New Hampshire. And I lived there my whole life. I was that town Deerfield that I mentioned earlier. I was literally born in my house. My mother had a midwife. So like I was New Hampshire born and raised, and I'm working 100% remote, and my wife is 100% remote, and Manchester, New Hampshire, which is, it's not the capital of New Hampshire, that's Concord, but Manchester is its biggest city. And it became like, if we just move 2 hours north to Maine, we will save so much money. Like it's unreal how much money we'll save just by existing. Whereas by existing here, we're spending so much more. So we don't have kids. We can't have kids. And so we packed up and we moved. And so we live here now, and the cost of living is so fucking low, which is why everything I just showed you has been procured in the last year. Everything. And so moved? We moved up here. I want to say like we've been up here for like maybe like 19 months now. But when I started the channel, last June, at the end of June. And so everything I think now I'm at like 7 months, 8 months. But everything I just showed you, most of everything that you see from the first episode on, which was my Supergirl, everything's been in the last year. because we saved so much money that we moved up here that I got into comics really hard. But the point is, we moved up here, and I didn't have any network. There's not a lot of comic book stores in Maine. I didn't have anyone to talk to about this shit, and I was consuming content like a maniac. I was like YouTube comic book content. I was watching stuff like your channel, like just normal people talking about this thing that they love. And so I was sick and tired of sitting on the sidelines, and I wanted to join the conversation. So I got my camera, I got my shit, I invested heavily in the technology. Like I got my Shure mic, and I've got a gimbal now, so much stuff. And it was all in service of me having people to talk to about comic books where I could be a part of the conversation and not just in the comment section. Unfortunately, what I didn't see coming is I fell in love with the filmmaking aspect of it. And so for anyone who thinks I'm too rambly or whatever, go to my channel, and this is not the content that I make. I make like little movies, and I like making skits and comedy stuff, and I love it. It's so much fun. And so I've really educated myself on like how to navigate the technology aspect of it so I can tell the story that I want to.
That's what I was going to get. Was my next question was going to be like, anyone that watches your channel, it's very obvious you have a flair for the dramatic, and I was going to ask, where does that come from?
Well, back in Deerfield, New Hampshire, I got into just like stage acting and play acting and making movies with my friends, and it was really fun. It was a creative outlet. I've always been a like a creative type. I've written a book. It's called The Amazing Mrs. Cadabra. You can get it on Amazon right now. My next book is going to be coming out this year. I'm on a plan to write a book a year, and then publish a book a year. So like, I don't know, like I have too much creativity for my own, for the clock sometimes. And so that it drives my wife crazy. She's like, you have all these things that you do. And she's like, you make me feel shitty because I don't have like a project I'm working on, or like I'm writing my third book right now, and I'm waiting for my second book to come back from my editor so I can make those final edits and then start shopping it around. And if nobody wants to buy it like the first one, I'll publish it my goddamn self. And I'm having fun, and I like being creative, and YouTube is just this ultimate outlet for like, how creative do you want to be? How much do you want to put into this thing to make it as big as you can get? And so that's what I'm doing right now.
I will say real quick, I do actually because I like long form discussion and things like that. While you do great with like the little skits and stuff, my favorite videos of yours is just when you're just like on the mic, whether it be a live stream or recorded, and you're just talking about thoughts about this book, thoughts about that book, thoughts about this book. But that's my personal opinion.
Well, you did the ones with, you were in that mall with the comic show, and then you're back in your room, which is not the same room you're broadcasting from now.
It is.
It is.
Just the lighting
is different. So like here, I can move this camera. I'll have to adjust it when I get back, but
because you're usually from that door, I'm like, he is as tall as that freaking door. How tall is this guy? Is that a short house or what?
Oh, it's in the dark here. Let me see if I have a flashlight on my phone.
Oh, is it right to the left of the TV?
JP, not just because you said how tall is this guy. I've always assumed
that's the bookshelf I stand in front of.
Sometimes when you see people on camera, it's like you can't tell, and some people come across as big, some people come across as small. Like I'm assuming Ricky is very large. Like I kind of have like I kind of have like Hodor vibes with Ricky here.
Not gonna lie, yeah. I'm 330 pounds and 6'5". I'm a big guy.
Yeah, I mean, you're at the top of that door. Like I was like, holy shit, he's gonna be tall, And then you show me the picture of you with the mountain, and you're as tall as the mountain. And I was like, holy crap! Like I would much rather be bald and be tall than have my hair and be my height. So I would give any amount of money to be tall. That would be the one thing
I tell my wife all the time. I'm like, it's not even dick size, baby. It's height. If a man could shave off 2 inches from his dick but add 6 inches to his lift, they would.
That is 100% true, because like I have a friend that is 6'7", and like it's unbelievable. Now obviously I'm 40 now. I don't go out like that anymore, but like when we used to,
you're not clubbing anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, but it's just like you stick out, and that's the key, is you stick out above everyone else, and like it's like moth to a flame. Like it drove me
Yep.
fucking crazy.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
if
you
you're
can't-
nice at the same time and you're not a creep,
Yeah,
goddamn.
and if you're not socially awkward, you're probably gonna
Well,
do well.
And with your personality and your height, I mean, you got like it is moth to a flame because I'm looking forward to Terrificon because it should be interesting with that. I just for your personality and what probably is going to go down at that time. So, but
Well,
yeah,
we're definitely gonna like that's the thing. And this is for those of you who like have no idea what I'm gonna do to these pieces of shit.
So
I'm
real quick, what he's talking about is we're all planning to go to Terrificon this year. So.
yes. What I'm gonna do is I've already got 3 of them, but I have basic scripts for any combination of people who want to do a skit. So I've got one for 7 people, I've got one for 6, I've got one for 5, I've got one for 4, 3, 2, and then just me by myself. So that at any point in time, if someone's like, "No, dude, let's film something funny." Okay, cool. How many people do we have? 4. Great. We're gonna film this one. And then this is what we're gonna do. And so like I want to be able to like direct really quickly of like, okay, this is what you do here, you say this line, you do this, and then so that we can bang out. I want to have like multiple videos coming out a night. Like
Oh, yeah.
we're going to be hanging out and doing something, and then where the hell's Ricky? Oh, he went back to his room to edit and post a video really quick. I'll be back in 2 hours, and there will be a video up before any of you pieces of shit. And
hopefully we're still drinking whenever you come back, right?
and we're all going to be in it. Yeah, I've got like a ton of ideas, just like really fun con stuff that we can do.
And that's the thing, like just going back to YouTube itself is that the creative aspect of it, you know, I would say I'm creative in regard to art and whatnot and artwork, and that's why I'm a cover guy, but you don't really always get the satisfaction of the quick response, right?
Right.
Like your video, the recent one with you and the ordering the food, right? And you had the hair, the rag over your head or something. I remember.
Right.
Okay. And you were talking about the steak and all that, and rare versus
Yes.
value, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was brilliant. So I don't know what the number count was of watching it, but I know some of the videos I've made that I thought were really good, you know, they might get 50 views, and it's like, so you don't get that response back that what's the word I'm looking for? Just the
Like feedback.
or you know,
It doesn't give you the validation you were looking
validation. Thank you. Yes, perfect.
So that's what
that
that's what I'm struggling with right now, because like everybody knows this term in music. Who's this Mexican guitarist? Oh, he's a guitarist's guitarist. Or like she's a singer's singer, meaning like singers like them, but like they're not popular.
Or he's an actor's actor.
Right. So I'm a YouTuber, I'm a comic book YouTuber's YouTuber right now. Like nobody knows who I am, but the people who make this shit, I get reached out to by some pretty big names, and they're like, "Dude, this was fucking good." And I'm like, "Thank you." But like for the masses, like the masses don't know who I am yet. But like I'm plugging away.
No, and I
Ricky,
think
I don't want you to be morose, but like maybe you're like the next Vincent Van Gogh. It's just like,
oh yeah, I'll cut my fucking ear off. I'll be famous after I jump off a bridge.
well, you're getting validation from the people who are reaching out. I think that's more important because, you know, like just to give a stupid example, but my daughter's in an art class and a teacher who teaches it isn't an art teacher. They're just filling in. And she gave my daughter like a terrible grade on one of her artwork. And I'm like, how do you know art? Like I can bring in Dave Stevens' work, McFarlane, and tell you the shading and all this crap. You don't know enough about it. So your validation doesn't matter. But someone in the community, back to people reaching out to you, I think is important to get that validation because that's who really should matter. Not some lay person who's not in the community. It's nice if you get box office like Tom Cruise, but whenever you're getting Oscars from your peers, does that mean more? When you know what I mean? Like there's difference between box office revenue and the awards that mean something if you're in that field.
The difference is with YouTube, and I'm not shy about this shit, I want to do bigger and crazier things. But like I want to do bigger and crazier things, but like you need money to do it. And so like I want my channel to be monetized. I want a bigger audience so that I can do bigger and crazy things. I don't want to be I don't want to be the Mr. Beast of fucking comic book YouTube.
That's what I was gonna say.
I don't want to be that. I think that's a very different business model for life. I would much rather be the angry video game nerd of comic books, where like his content is making movies about the things that he loves. And so like I want to do that. I want to do sketches and movies, and like I have this idea for criticizing CGC. It needs to be summer so I can get access to some boats. But I want to be on a boat, and I envision myself in like a captain's uniform being like, yes, this prow has seen us from the Atlantic to the Pacific. What a good ship she is. Oh, she is a good ship, Captain. Very well she is. What a great ship. Remember when we had to replace the mast, and remember when we had to replace the keel, but she's still a great ship. Still a great ship she is, Captain. And then it cuts to like me down on the ground in street clothes being like, that's a purple label. I'll give you $50. And he's like, what the it's a Queen's ship. How dare you devalue it? Well, if it was original parts and you had a blue label, now we'd be talking, but a purple $50, I gotta stand firm. And so then I can get into my discussion about like how I think CGC is idiotic. But like the shit like that I want to do, but now I gotta have access to a boat. Maybe I gotta rent a boat. So like that's not cheap. So
I feel like you got the skills there with
you talk someone into it.
Well, not only that, I feel like you could faux a boat scene in your house somehow.
Sure, but like I just want to be on a boat.
Well, it depends. You're not going to get a pirate boat, but you might be able to get a pontoon boat or something, you know?
Right. And I totally could. No, and you're absolutely right. But like that's what I mean by like my imagination is a lot bigger than what I can afford right now.
He's gonna get so big, he's gonna be like the woman in Titanic, just dropping that $1 million diamond into the water.
Yeah, just for a gag. Like no, that was a real diamond. Yeah. That was a real diamond.
You're just dropping like an Action 1 comics into the water.
Oh man, see that's man. I want to do. This is real. Like I want to do cash prizes for the wrestling stuff that I'm doing. I want to do cash
stuff you're doing now with.
I want to do Grail prizes. Like I want everybody to sign on for the season, and it's like everybody's going to be doing 3 fights, and then where you land at the end, whoever's the king of the ring, I'm going to buy the Grail that you signed up for at the beginning of the show.
You could, if you get a comic book sponsor, like a store,
sure,
you might be able to get that.
Sure, and that's what I mean. Like I don't
not cost you a whole bunch.
Like I won't put him on blast, but like we know a YouTuber right now who's very successful with YouTube, and he's making money, thank God, and he deserves it. But where he's hamstrung is hamstrung. I'm doing air quotes. Like he's got a whole ass life. He's got a family. He's got a mortgage. He's got a house. I'm just a dickhead who lives in a really affordable house, and I make good money. So like everything I would make on YouTube is just like, it would just go into making my YouTube bigger. It would be so much fun. So, I mean, I'm spending my own money now. Like I pay for my StreamYard Pro. I pay for Photor so I can edit my thumbnails because I want the good looking thumbnails.
JP and I are on free StreamYard here, everybody. Let's go.
Hell yeah. I bought
this free thumbnail site.
Yeah, exactly. I make my thumbnails on Instagram for free.
I bought there's a replacement camera because I don't like my laptop camera. I got the Shure mic. I got a fucking gimbal. Holy shit, guys, this thing's wild. It's like a handheld gimbal, and it like
yeah. The gimbals are sweet.
It's super sweet. But like I got a lot of I got the lapel mics. Like I've got so much I want to do. But that's where I want to see the channel going. Just like a way of making my ridiculous stupid.
Ricky's gonna have some fucking drones with cameras on them, and
I want to get a dill drone and just like fly it around and just have like a little dildo on a drone and like
they have those. It's called a dill drone.
No, he's gonna make that. He's gonna make
it. It's called a dill drone.
Well, that's what I'm calling it. It's not called a boomerang, but I call it a boomerang when it's got like the curve.
Dill drone. I like you better copyright that right now. Trademark that.
Yeah, there's gonna be Mr. Beast's dill drone. It's chocolate, and you can like bite at
it. Oh man, fuck. That's interesting. I'd love to see that, but
all right. So then, to go back to the original question, though, the goal is growth.
The
Well,
goal
no,
is
wait. The goal is Dill Drone.
yeah,
Yes,
the
then growth.
goal
That's
is
the
Dill
dream.
Drone.
Like
Yeah.
this,
The
right?
method to get there is growth. And so like I'll be honest, like I'm seeing numbers come in and they're steady. And it's not just the views, it's the people who see it and then stick around. Like I think I've gotten, what am I at now? What am I at right now? We're doing it live. I just hit 280. So we're just on the cusp of 300. And I don't know, like I have a vision in my head of how the algorithm works. And I feel like if one person clicks on your video, every point of engagement means YouTube is going to advertise your video to one more person. That's how I think of it. So if someone clicks on my video, YouTube is going to then put that video in front of one more person. If someone clicks on my video and clicks like, YouTube is going to put that video in front of 2 people. If someone watches it, clicks like, and comments, it'll put that video in front of 3 people. And then that's how viral potentiality works, where this
Wait,
person.
Is that actually? That's just your
I
theory,
don't.
correct?
I have no. I'm talking out of my butthole,
Yeah.
but like in my brain, that's how I envision the YouTube algorithm works. And so, like, I'm pleased when a video gets in front of a smaller audience, but the engagement is through the roof. Because then all of a sudden, oh, go ahead.
How much of your sites, how much your videos do you get the engagement, the comments? Because that's where I see. I don't think we get a ton of comments on ours for whatever reason, but if you're getting comments, that's where the engagement is going to pop up.
So
I don't know
like
why.
I'm getting the most recent video. So Comic Collecting Clash of Champions was 24 likes, 22 comments.
Yeah. See.
My Trading for a Comic Book Rail was 37 likes, 19 comments. Comic Collecting Clash of Champions, the one before that, was 29 likes, 17 comments. My biggest one, like oddly enough, my biggest video, 2,000 views. Everything comic collectors need to know about Crossed, 114 likes, 63 comments.
So let me ask you this question, Ricky, then, to talk like yourself here.
Yeah.
Would you be willing in the near future, in the short term, to whore yourself out in making content that you may not enjoy or love, like, let's say, a CGC unboxing, in order to build the audience to get to the point where you can make what you want to make?
I fear that. So here's the deal. And someone, a guy in our group of friends, Ryan, the Colossus Collector, he said this. He was talking about how his CGC unboxings did really well. They brought in a lot of people. But then he followed that statement, and we were talking. It was me, him, and Brandon from Mom Comics, and he followed that statement up with, "But now it's my job to keep them."
Mm-hmm.
And so I almost feel like I'm doing it in reverse. I'm like mine. You know how subscribers, like, you'll get 1, you'll lose 2, you'll get 3, you'll lose 2. My shit don't do that. I get 3. I lose 1. I get 5, it doesn't move. I get 6, it doesn't move. I lose 1, I gain 7. And so like it's slowly climbing the ladder, but it's
they're sticking around.
They're sticking around because so I feel like if I go to CGC stuff, 1, I feel like I would be so snarky about it that people would be like, he doesn't want to do this. I'd be making fun of it the whole fucking time.
That might be good though.
I was gonna say that maybe exactly. I was gonna say that may be good.
That's the video where I do like I want to do like a like I said, I want to do like a massive slab crack where for like a whole video I think it'll be 1,000 subscriber special. At 1,000 subscribers, I will crack every goddamn book in the slab that I have, and I will just talk about how much I hate slabbing. It's not preserving comic books. Here's it is, folks. Here's my hot take for the night. Slabbing doesn't preserve your comic books. Buying ugly comic books is preserving comic books. So that comic book that everybody passes over, oh, it's got a hole in the cover, oh, it's got some spine damage, that book that everybody's not taken to the ball, if you buy that book, you've prevented that book from that seller going, ugh, no one's buying it, toss, and now it's gone. So like, if you want to preserve comic books, you buy the ones that you want, obviously, but if it's not the perfect condition, who gives a shit? In fact, right now, current events time, motherfucker, teacher hat goes on. Current events time, right now, there is a huge debate happening in Egypt, of all places, because the smallest of the 3 pyramids is the one that is in the most disrepair. And there was an organization saying, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the stones that are at the base of the pyramid. We're going to find the exact spot they went, and we're going to reassemble the pyramid, and we're going to preserve it. And then all of these experts are coming forward and saying, you have just destroyed the antiquity of the thing. The antiquity of the thing isn't the fact that there is a pyramid sitting in the desert. Who gives a shit? The fact is, it's so old, and this is what it looks like after thousands of years of disrepair. That's the purpose of the antiquity. So when you have an Action Comics #1 that looks like it's been through the ringer, this thing has been rode hard and put away wet.
Nice.
That is part of it. This is the history. This was a book that a kid had in his treehouse, and now it's got sap on the back. Ew, gross.
But let's also be real here. An Action Comic 1, 0.5 just sold for $400,000. So there's no shortage of that book not being sold.
Right. Well, the point that I'm making is like there are 1,000 examples of a book that people want, but because it's not a 9.8, my dick don't get stiff. And it's so obnoxious because this is a book that like it has damage on it. Yeah, because a kid actually loved it. These are paper products made for children.
You'd almost want to get the book that the kid wrote his name on it.
I love my first appearance of Crypto the Superdog has a kid's name on the back. Like it had a form that you could cut out and mail away. And he wrote his name like he was practicing his signature. And I love it. It's a part of the book. The library stamps.
People like date stamps.
It's awesome. And like I feel like people like the pyramid, people are ignoring the antiquity for this like obsession with virginness. This like, well, it has to be pure and untouched and ew.
Well, not as much. Well, I guess with CGC that if you start to, you get qualified or you get restored grade, but people want things to be perfect. That's why they want to fix those pyramids.
Well, yeah, because their wife left them and they have nothing else to live for. They need something to be perfect in their lives. The kids don't talk to them anymore. The last time they came, they cried for a minute, like 60 seconds of okay, back to work. Like they pulled themselves together. Back to work. You can fucking do it. You can do it.
I have to say, Ricky, whenever you joined the chat, you came in like a goddamn like a fireball, and I was like, who the hell is this guy? Like, we didn't have anyone going like that. I was like, Jesus Christ! Like, I appreciate it, but like most people were like pretty calm, and then you came in, I was like, all right, this is something different, and I loved it. So
this is okay. So I have to tell you this. So my wife is a saint. When she dies, I'm going to petition to have her sainted for dealing with me. Because everything you're seeing right now, anyone who's endured this video for this long, this is me at 8 a.m. And like, this is me all the time. And like, there's no low energy, like this is me, I'm manic. And so like, this isn't like I'm performing. This is actually almost a year of me being on YouTube, finally getting comfortable being myself on camera. In the beginning, if you watch anything I was on, like I didn't want to swear. I wanted to, very good point, guy, I think is an imbecile. There's a lot of that. And so like now I just like, I don't know. I find
let it hang out.
And I'm telling you, like for anyone who is ever thinking about doing this YouTube thing, like my channel was a ghost until some few people, Mr. Akins, Brandon from Mon Comics, fucking Obito Comics, who's pretty much dead now. His channel is like gonzo. But like these people, like they saw that glimmer of me that I was hiding under a bunch of artifice, and they said like, no, fuck it, let it out. And so like now, I mean, I don't know. I think you can be yourself as long as you're nice, and I think that's the secret sauce.
As long as you're genuine, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, if what you put on screen is what you really are. I mean, a lot of people like you can act, and that's its own little world there. But people like genuineness, and if you're always that way, whether you're out about or on camera, then people can appreciate that. So I don't like fake people that, and that's just my opinion, but someone who acts one way online and then you see them in person and they're, whatever, they're different.
Yeah, but I also don't want like, I'm just keeping it real. Copyright. I want to be a piece of shit. Like, like I'm just keeping it real. And like, I think like being nice. And so this is, we're late in the broadcast, but I'll be super honest on this point. I was a bully. at one point in time. I've always been a bigger guy. I've always been chubby, and I was insecure, and so I would just like pick on people like it was a roast.
Did you
And I
do
would
it
go
before
down.
someone would pick on you? Is that why you did it?
Well, because I wanted to. I've always been kind. I'm not tooting my own horn, like, but like I am kind of like I know what my skill set is, and the gift of gab is something that I've always had, and like the jokes are something that I've always had, and so ever since I was a little kid, but I didn't know how to use it appropriately, so I weaponized it. And so
Oh,
to
yeah.
make myself look different and to make myself be unique, instead of joking about things because I was smart and clever, I would joke about people because I was observational and a dickhead. And so like it really put me on the outside of people. Like the moment I left any group of people, they would be like, that guy sucks. And I hated that feeling. And I hated the feelings I was putting out in the world. So my mixture now is like, I'll joke about anything. But I don't joke about people. If in rewatch the broadcast, if you need to, folks, I have not made any jokes about people. I only joke about things. And so if you make that little adjustment, you can say whatever the fuck you want all the time. I've like people make jokes at like jobs that I've had where they're like, how on earth do you not live inside of HR? And I'm like, because I don't make anybody feel bad. I just talk about the stuff that we all hate or stuff that we all know. And so like I think that's a part of it too, because we're dealing with a lot of drama on YouTube right now of people who are like keeping it real, but really they're just cunts.
I haven't heard about those people. I had looked it up. I just appreciate someone who's always the same. You know, again,
Yeah.
you can make fun of people, I guess, if you do it in a lighthearted way, and just you're always more.
I'd rather just not because I can. But like I'm telling you, on the other side of it, as like a serial dickhead, I spent a lot of my life doing it, and the results. You might think you're okay with it. You might think it's like bro talk, like ho, your dick's small, but like it doesn't. At the end of the day, it doesn't feel good.
It wears on people. It wears on people.
It does, and then it makes them think I feel that way, and so I would rather be more intentional with my actions, and I would rather have everyone get a seat at the table. And make people
when you
feel
say you
like
make fun of a thing, if you could give me an example. So like what thing would you make fun of?
Like JP, you look like you literally just came off a fucking golf course. Like something like that. Like
but that hurts. That hurts so terribly.
like you just came in from like a whites only round of 8 holes.
Like
whites only banking happy hour.
Oh yeah.
But that's a good observational comment. Like I can appreciate that. I guess how would you make fun of a person and indifferent? Like, you know what I mean? Like I kind of see
there are definitely plenty of ways to make fun of people.
But I'm just saying, like I see that as a good quip to say to somebody, and like you can, I don't know. I can appreciate that kind of humor in that sense.
Sure, and like, and let me tell you, like when a lot of it is because like cameras are on. You know what I mean? Like I like if at Terrificon, if you want to go a couple rounds. Absolutely. I'll turn your asshole into a windsock. This will be great. But like in this type of scenario, like it's more fun to be nice. Quite frankly.
Oh, yeah.
Is like
I don't say anything about being mean, but I don't take you as being mean, but just being observant and saying what's on your mind. Like I can appreciate just that, you know, that type of conversation. You know, I'm not big on making fun of people. I was bullied, you know, because we read comic books and people bullied. And it was usually like, I was just at a basketball game tonight, and one of the bigger kids that's with the in crowd, he picks on people like you can't believe, but he picks on them because he doesn't want to be picked on himself.
Yeah.
And I can see that reason why he does it, but he's quick. He's funny. You know, it's like John Belushi, you know, it's good, you know, and I can appreciate just being quick witted with that kind of stuff because, you know, that's a pretty good skill to have.
The difficulty with that lifestyle, though, is that it's really so the way that I would operate. I'm giving away the ghost, and I can guarantee you, I haven't even met this guy. Just hearing that little bit about him, I can tell you exactly how he operates. What he does is he stands in a circle of friends, and it's a firing line. And he'll pick one person and he'll say a joke. He'll pick another person, he'll say a joke, and he'll go down the line and he'll make fun of everybody. And then in his head, he's like, but I make fun of everybody. But being the guy that did that, the second he leaves the circle, that circle closes and they go, that guy fucking sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, you said, yeah, I like the guy, but you just brought him up as a negative. It's because that's how it works. So I'm saying that I've lived both sides of it. And on this side of it, that little tweak, don't make fun of people, make fun of things. And all of a sudden, everyone feels included and they're more apt to listen to you. It's alienating, making fun of people in that way. That guy is a sad.
Hopefully he learns.
Sad.
Maybe he'll watch the show and he'll learn how to make fun of things and not people. But that's part of what I'm looking forward to Terrificon, because I think there's going to be a lot of interesting dynamic.
A lot of banter for sure.
Oh, sure. Yeah. When the cameras aren't on and, I have more THC than red blood cells running through me. I'm sure I'm sure the demon will come out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Ricky, this has been awesome having you on. Thank you for coming on. Real quick, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you, your Instagrams, your channels, your books, all that stuff, and then we'll
sure. Look in any dark corner of your house. Lift any blanket you were sure had no one underneath it just a minute ago, and I'll be there. You can also find my books on Amazon. The name of my first book is The Amazing Mrs. Cadabra. Instagram, I'm Ricky Cadabra, because I was making my Instagram after my YouTube channel, and all the names that I wanted that were related to all sorts of words were taken. And so I just thought of the name of my book, because I'm a piece of shit. And then on YouTube, it's All Sorts of Words, separate, All Sorts of Words. Come by. We have a wrestling show that we do every week where we have different comic YouTubers making fun of themselves and having a really good time. And it's a really fun channel. It's creative, and we need cool people like you.
Right on. And we'll put all that stuff down in the description. But yeah, thanks for coming on. This has been fun. And we'll definitely have to have you on as your channel grows.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, Rick, I enjoyed it. I appreciate being called one of the cool people. So thank you very much. And I look forward to Terrificon in our next conversation. So make sure everyone likes, comments, and subscribe. We need comments to keep the algorithm working. Ricky, if you could write a bunch of things, that'd be great when this thing drops. That'd be helpful.
I will.
Everybody, have a great night. Peace out.
Peace out, guys.